Hey, Michelle, how are you?
I'm good, Alexis. How are you?
I am well, thank you. I wonder, given that today is a new topic on relationships counselling and specifically marathon, the couples marathon,
Mm.
whether you might just like to start with an introduction about the way that you work, who you work with, and anything else you'd like to share.
Yeah, of course. Well, happy Sunday, everybody. First of all, thanks for sharing your 5 o'clock on Sunday with us. I'm really excited to talk about this stuff. I'm really passionate about couples counselling and people seeking help.
Mhm.
So I work for North Brisbane psychologists. I've been a counsellor there for a while now. We have 5 or 6 couples therapists there at the moment, and we're all trained in a method called the Gottman method. So lots of people have probably heard of this before. They're two relationship psychologists from the US who have been studying relationships for over 40 years. So they're really clear on what works and what doesn't. And they have developed training for therapists to be able to do to teach to work with their method. So we practice with that, and it's such a fantastic method because it is so steeped in research. It's really clear, really thorough, and I love working with that method. It's one of my favorites. Really needs based communication kind of stuff, friendship based, working with conflict.
Mhm.
Yeah, really effective, proven strategies.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Um, we were talking just before we launched here the conversation about some of the barriers and difficulties in showing up to a couples therapist. And I know certainly here in the naturopathic clinic that I have mostly women who are sharing that they're not satisfied in their relationships, or their relationship, and there's difficulty with communication.
Mm.
Um, yeah, difficulty kind of reaching through to their partners, and they're unsure of how to raise it with them. Even the fear of suggesting that they might see a therapist, it feels too hard. So I wonder whether you might give us a little bit of information on how to broach it with your partner if you feel it's something you'd like to start.
Yeah, I think, yeah, first of all of that stuff is really normal. I mean, I hear that with my friends, I hear that professionally, I hear that across the board. How do I broach bringing up something difficult? Because traditionally, I think couples therapy has kind of been seen as the end of the road.
Yeah.
Or if I bring this up, then I must think that there's something horrific going on in our relationship that's unresolvable,
Mhm.
or it's because we're in the midst of a crisis.
Mhm.
And the myth that I'd really like to dispel is that coming into counseling can be at any stage of your relationship.
Mhm.
So, arming yourself with that knowledge and that idea is a helpful start to know that this doesn't have to spell the end. This
Mhm.
is actually a really healthy, productive thing to do. We go to the dentist for checkups, we go to our GP for all sorts of things. Why wouldn't we do the same for our emotional health with somebody that we're going to live with for a very, very long time, and try and potentially raise children with and share finances with? Let's work on some skills. So the first thing to kind of put people's mind at ease that I would say is that this is actually okay to do and to bring up, and it's not something that needs to be shrouded in secrecy and shame. And in terms of broaching the subject, of course, it depends on your relationship, how you interact, how you want to bring it up. But certainly just being able to say, hey, I'm thinking about this. I read this article, maybe I watched this video on couples counseling. What do you reckon? I'd really like it if we could both communicate better, you
Mhm.
know. And that it's not going to be something. I get this a bit too. People think, and I'm sure the other counselors, the couples counselors at North Brisbane psychologists would feel this too. They think that you're going to be some sort of referee, like point to this partner, point to that partner. And it's really not like that at all. Um, so I understand there's a lot of stigma around it. There's a lot of fear around it.
Mhm.
But just really gently saying to your partner, what do you reckon? Here's the, the therapy page that I found. Have a look at some of the therapists on that page. Do you like the look of any of them? Do you like their bios?
Yeah.
Just that really gentle stuff. And we're really lucky, with the lives that, all you and Rachel do, and the videos, that there's so much content on there that you can engage with first off, if you're a bit fearful about making that leap. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love what you've said about using counselling preventatively and even proactively, and just being on the front foot. It's reminding me of the value of doing things really early in the relationship and setting the foundations and the structures in place for communication. Yeah, the emphasis on communication as just avenues for understanding. So what do you find, what could you let people know to expect when they come in? If someone has never been really to a therapist before, let's say, and they're concerned about, whether they're going to be asked confronting questions, whether they're going to have to dig deep, whether they'll be going back through childhood, or, there's likely to be some fear around, oh, what am I going to be confronted with? Do people have an opt-out? If something comes up that's too big for them, how do you structure and format? Yeah, just give us an idea about what to expect.
Yeah, I think that fear is really normal, and particularly if you have some kind of trauma or background in that you might be fearful of bringing up, or you're afraid of how it might get used or brought up. A lot of people still have that idea that therapy is laying back on a couch, and processing your childhood, and whilst it can be that, it's not always that, which I think is, I thought that when I first went, 10, 15 years ago, but it's not that. Most therapists that you meet will be gentle and kind and try and understand your story. And I think that's where, that's what I try and do as well. With the Gottman method, there's a really clear assessment phase. So we see the couple in a joint session. That's where I'll ask all of those questions about, what brings you here today. We'll learn a bit about the relationship history. And we do touch on family history. We do touch on some of those things. But really, what we're looking at there, it's not the same as if you were doing your own individual work or your own individual trauma work, if that makes sense. It's us getting a sense of what's going on in your family history that may have impacted, certainly. But if something comes up for you, then we have different ways of dealing with that. So we might encourage your own therapist, or, is this the right time to be doing the work? And, that sort of thing. So there's a really thorough screening. We'll have an individual session. You have to do a survey as part of the process. So it's very comprehensive for many reasons, but one of them is for that personal safety. So you're not delving into something that you're not ready for, or that if you want to, we have really clear avenues for you to be able to do that. But I get it. I get that fear. But essentially what we're working with is getting a really clear lay of the land with the relationship. And then once those sort of 4 sessions are done, then we'll delve into some interventions, which once again are based on methods that the Gottmans have developed. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? What are some of the skills that people can expect to get under their belts? Yeah.
Well, it really depends what you're presenting with, so if you were coming in and there's been, an affair, or there's been, say some sort of crisis in the relationship, it's almost like a bit of a triaging situation where we deal with that first. But in general, what you're going to get are really clear templates and exercises on how to communicate, so a bit of NVC stuff as well. The nonviolent communication weaves into this. There's a lot of crossover with the Gottmans, so being able to listen to, really understand rather than listening to respond. That's where I start first. We work on not escalating during conflict. So really noticing, okay, what are my body clues when I'm starting to physiologically flood in an argument, because I swear that's most people's issue with conflict. You know, most people are smart, you know, thoughtful people. They can go and do the repair later after a fight, but it's just being able to stop before it escalates. So we do a lot of that kind of thing. Then, of course, as you can expect, some conflict management. So really identifying what the traps and barriers are in conflict management styles. The Gottmans call them the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which is not dramatic at all. But it's, again, there's another video that Rachel's done, I think, on the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, but it's things like criticism, contempt, defensiveness, stonewalling. And these are the things that, you know, show up in conflict, and we try to work with their antidotes. And then as time goes on, you know, we really work on, okay, so what are our goals? What are our shared values? What are, you know, how can we create, you know, a life of meaning together? How can we do this life thing together in a way where we both have our needs met? So I kind of look at it like, well, the Gottmans call it the sound relationship house, but building it from the ground up, you know. So we're starting with going, okay, how's the friendship going in your relationship? How well do the two of you actually still know each other? Do you know each other's interests? Do you know what you're watching on Netflix? Do you know, you know, all these kind of things that can seem quite trivial, but really are the stuff that make life. And we build up from there. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that you're reminding us of how central communication is to thriving. And yeah, you're reminding me that, you know, the purpose of a relationship, any relationship, is to be more together than we are apart. And whilst that's pretty easy to do early on, it seems over time resentment builds up. I'm thinking about a client this week who's had, you know, a long-standing marriage, and then some of the resentments that have been creeping in, whether they're now at the point that it's you know, it's affecting functioning within the relationship, and then for the children. And it just seems well, A, that it could be prevented through being more proactive, but B, it could be quite simply solved through communication. And, you know, one of the themes that comes up a lot here in relation to family conflict is this kind of unspoken agreement, you know, or the expectations, they're called in NBC. Just, you know, I have these kind of subtle demands that somebody's going to do that, and yet I've never actually made it explicit. So
they should just know, he should just know, she should just know. Yeah.
Yeah. And why can't they do that? You know, because it's obviously important to me. And yet, you know, the language and the structure to present it in a way that, you know, as you say, is not going to escalate, but allow safe communication, openness, exploration, which is really the stuff of life, isn't it? That's what makes it juicy. So, yeah, in terms of communication, what kind of feedback do you get from clients, around, you know, how they apply it in their lives, the difference that it makes, to them and their kids?
Yeah, it's quite amazing. I mean, to see it almost not instantly, that sounds a bit dramatic, but perhaps even in half an hour of a couple doing an exercise, you know, where instead of saying something like, which we're all guilty of from time to time, but using you language. So you always do this, you never do this, whatever the end of that sentence is. And shifting it to, when I see you do X, Y, Z, I feel and I need, you know, it kind of confuses people at first, and it feels a bit clunky. And I've done couples therapy myself, and I remember the feeling of, no, I just need to get my point across, you know. Wait.
But you don't understand. But
you. So it does throw people at first, but once we get we wade through that awkwardness, it's almost instantly it just shifts people's mentality, because you're having to take on and have an awareness of yourself. So what am I feeling and what am I needing? We often don't ask ourselves that, particularly in the kind of lives that we have. If parent, you know, if you've got a busy life, you've got a complex life, we don't stop and say, what do I actually need in this moment? So the instant shift that I start to see is when we do this exercise and there's a clear speaker and a clear listener, and I'm there to kind of make sure that it doesn't escalate. And then they each have turns. They have to summarize and validate what the other person has said, not necessarily agree with it, just empathize with it. And then they swap and they kind of, more often than not, people are mind blown by it because they're sitting there going, oh, I didn't realize you felt that way. I didn't realize that this was your need. I just thought you were complaining and you were frustrated or tired, or I didn't realize, I thought you were just nagging at me. But actually really pausing and slowing that down and listening to one another is such a beautiful intervention. And then, of course, as time goes on, once we build up those skills, we then work on, okay, so how do we come to a compromise, of course. But initially, yeah, that's, I always find that really humbling and just really beautiful to watch. Yeah.
Yes, it is. I love that you've emphasised the difference between agreement and empathy. And the objective of relationships is not to agree. Some things, obviously, we've got to find that point, but the objective of a relationship is for understanding and empathy, which is such a different shift. So yeah, you're reminded that it's it's a self-reflective process, isn't it? To slow down, be aware of what I'm saying, to take ownership, responsibility as a means of personal transformation. Really, that's a golden reminder, because the stuckness so often comes from the you, doesn't it? I'm then it's out of my hands, and I'm not actually applying my agency. So the minute I can acknowledge, as you've said, okay, how do I feel? What do I need? Then the relationship is a conduit for development. Yeah, that's a beautiful reminder.
Yeah, and there's, sorry, go on.
Oh, no, I'm just opening it up. Yeah, what's front of mind?
Oh, I'm just thinking about, I was just thinking about the clients and the couples that I see, and quite often, if couples are struggling with that exercise, like, it'll take a few clunky moments where they'll fall back into the you or fall back into judgment and blame. But then once they actually pause and get it and say, I feel, quite often they'll tear up or they'll become emotional because it's the first time that they've actually conceded, I deserve this. I'm okay. I'm enough. I can ask for this. And yeah, so I just feel that in some ways that's where couples therapy is probably really different to what anybody expects. It's not judgment, it's not refereeing, it's just getting to understand your partner better and what they need.
Yeah, I love that you've raised the validation. My experience of positive relationship is that it's really deeply healing, almost kind of going back to needs that weren't met during childhood that I didn't even really know about, but in a positive, empathetic and really gentle environment with skills, then there's a validation. Oh yeah, my needs really matter. My connection is really important to me, and it's not acceptable to live my life without that need being met, or at least there is a lot that I can do to build it. And like you say, there's often little tiny little tweaks that make the difference between feeling like I'm just not ever going to get that need met, which is a travesty, really, to move through life feeling lonely in your intimate relationship. And yet a lot of people do, and then, if one party is, both parties are. So just the skill, just those very, very basic, simple techniques even open it up and bring us back. I'd love to, speaking of opening it up, I'd love to open it up to our listeners as well, and just see whether they have any questions of you specific to couples therapy. Maybe there's some listeners who are thinking, what if I don't, what if I don't have a partner, but I'm looking to maybe consider that. Is there value? Is there things that I can put in place? I'm a huge fan of early intervention, being proactive and preventative. There might be some early, young couples or early in relationship who might be thinking, well, we'd love to come and get some skills to apply for the rest of our lives, or no doubt there's some, in conflict, feeling stuck, unsure what the first step is. So if you have any questions, it's a really great time. As Michelle has mentioned, there is stigma around couples therapy, but so often just a gentle environment and a series can be enough to get you going. While I check the questions, Michelle, maybe you could let people know, how long to expect to be working with you, and what happens after that first assessment period.
Oh, yes, good. So it really depends. So of course we have those 4 sessions of assessment. I think I read some research somewhere that said for behavioural change, probably it takes a minimum of 10 sessions. So it is an investment in that sense, but ultimately very worth it. But of course it depends. I can't unequivocally say X amount of sessions, because it depends what's going on in your life, things of that nature. But essentially what we're working with is whatever you're presenting with. Eventually, as you get a few more sessions in, you'll probably notice some of the real dynamics and patterns in your relationship start to show up in sessions, and then we start to work with that, because sometimes some people come in and they're all very polite and we're all in our best behavior. But then, of course, the reality of life sometimes is, not being able to get in weekly for an hour session, 2-hour sessions. So, we do have, a great alternative as well, where I offer 2-day intensive. So it's called marathon therapy. So what that is basically 2 days of intensive therapy of just you and your partner, where you aren't having to wait week to week, and you're just there, you're away, you're working on it. I think it's 4 1.5-hour sessions, basically, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, depending on the day. And the real value of that is that you're thrown in the deep end, you do it, you're all there, and it's actually very transformative, that kind of work. And I like working in that way. I think a lot of people can be a bit intimidated by it, like, oh gosh, I don't want to do 2 days of therapy. And I remember when I started doing them, I thought, oh gosh, that's going to be really intense too. But it's actually really spacious. It feels really lovely working with couples in that way. And I know it's worked as well for parents, who then don't have to worry about babysitters week to week. So there's lots of different ways that we work at North Brisbane Psychologists with couples to suit the need of the couple as well. Yeah.
So sorry if I was slightly distracted, but did you say, Michelle, that people often go away, to a hotel, or is it something that they do, while they're at home, and they dedicate the best part of the Saturday and the Sunday? How does it normally work?
So we normally go to a hotel. So you're away for 2 days, and we make it amenable throughout the week. Like, it doesn't have to be a weekend. I think the last couple that I saw was a Sunday and a Monday, and that just worked best around their daycare and child arrangements, things like that work. And the intention of that is that you're really dedicating a space to not be distracted, to not go home, and think about the day-to-day grind, and really have a clear focus space to work on the relationship, which is, again, how many people really do that? So I think it's a really special thing to be able to do and dedicate your time to. And again, it really varies with the kinds of couples that come to that. Some people have come in, in that premarital kind of phase, just, wanting to do that as a way to work through some things that have come up for them, make some plans for the future. Other people are presenting in crisis or thinking about separating. So yeah, it's an option for everyone, really.
Thank you, Michelle. Really great to hear about the couples marathon. Diana is asking if one in the partnership is not willing, but will go begrudgingly, is it still a good basis to start?
Some people would probably disagree with this, but I would say yes, because I have had that where if they're still willing to show up, then there's some desire that they have to change. Because if they didn't, they wouldn't go. And it's probably that sense of being begrudging that's showing up as a bit of fear sometimes, and of the process, what this is, that sort of thing. So I've had a fair few couples come in where one of the parties is, I do not want to be here, and they let me know.
And then how did that go?
Well, I ask why, why, what's going on for you? I would never want to force anybody to be here. Let me explain about the process, give me this session to explain the process. Have you had bad counselling experiences before? Have you had bad experiences with therapists or health professionals? What's the reason for not wanting to come? And often with that, if they have shown up, then they still tend to be relieved by that we can address it. And I'm sure the other couples therapists that we have at North Brisbane would be the same. It's this dealing with that resistance, which is a natural part of therapy anyway, that shows up sometimes. But I get that experience as a partner is really hard and really frustrating to just come on, let's go, let's and the other one doesn't want to, and it's really hard. But I would say if they go, just let them be going begrudgingly for a bit and see how it pans out.
And what's the worst case scenario, right? I mean, so they come, they're resistant. You might ask why. They might be hesitant to even talk. I mean, what would be the very worst case scenario?
As in for why they didn't want to be there?
As for, well, then, so let's say that someone's so resistant that they finish the first session and they say, well, I'm not coming back. I mean, that's the reality, isn't it? That's going to be the worst case.
Yeah.
In which case you probably still had some opportunity. You've had an hour to air some things that wouldn't have otherwise been aired. At least there's more awareness. Is there anything worse than that? I'm just thinking about putting some, giving some peace of mind in relation.
Oh, sure. I mean, in the sense of how the person reacts, I mean, of course, it depends again on the context of that relationship. But if it's merely I don't want to do that, we're not going back, that is probably the worst that could happen, which then I suppose then you're having to do some self-reflective work about where am I in this relationship and what do I need in this relationship. So then you're having to probably ask yourself some questions about that. Do I think we really need couples counselling? Where are my boundaries in this relationship? Okay, we've got stuff to work on. Do I have a minimum requirement that we do some counselling, or is there an alternative way that we could work through these issues?
That was my next question for you, Michelle. What can people do if they need to warm their partners up, or they need to just get something under their belts? Do you have any resources or links that we might share so people can start the process?
Yeah, I think like I said at the start, so this page, the North Brisbane Psychologist page, has so many videos on different topics, lots of stuff on communication. But if you just do a Google or YouTube search of Gottman, Julie or John Gottman, they have a lot of videos, both long and short, about what the method is, some really specific interventions about conflict. They have blogs on there, so we can certainly link people to that. So perhaps just gently sending your partner a video of this is the method. Here's a little 3 or 4 minute video. Here's a blog. And I think also the way that John and Julie Gottman speak, they've been doing this for such a long time. They're really not intimidating. They're very funny, gentle. clever people, you know, and they, you know, they don't come from the mountaintop, so to speak. You know, they always say how, you know, we have conflict all the time. We just have worked out how to manage it well. And so there's no judgment in that sense. So I think if you're, you know, looking for a way to dip your toe in the water, having a Google of them, or, you know, stuff on communication and sending it to your partner might be a good place to start.
Awesome. So we'll put there's a video that I often share with clients. It's quite long. It's 45 minutes, but it's long enough to really get a strong sense of the way that they work, and to even start applying some of the principles, at least giving it language and some structure. So I'll put that in the link below. And if there's anything else that you'd like to add, Michelle, please do so. But that's all the questions for the moment. We've got a few listeners, and hopefully there'll be also people who really do need to hear what it's actually like to be in the consulting room with a couples counsellor. And hopefully we've put some of your fears to rest and given you a bit of peace of mind. Is there anything else that you'd like to share on the topic, Michelle?
Just to reiterate what I've said about how okay it is to go and how it's not scary. You're in very safe hands, and though you may feel that fear and nervousness, you know, that really goes away quite quickly. And most people at the end of our sessions will say, gosh, I feel relieved. I'm so glad that we did this. Yeah.
Great. So show on up if you can even get that ball rolling. Can people book in with you via the website, Michelle? Is that the simplest way?
Have a look on the website. All our numbers are on there, our emails on there, and you can see the other couples counsellors as well on the page. So you can look through their profiles and see who you might like, or just who you resonate with, but probably giving the office a call would be the best way.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time, Michelle. And Rachel is driving back from her family holiday at the moment, so she sends her apologies. But we'll be back next Sunday, live at 5. And in the meantime, just a small announcement from Rachel and myself. We're offering this year a mentorship program, and there's only 5 places. In fact, a number of them have already booked up, so there's 2 lots of 5. So I'll put some links below for those of you who might be interested in doing some deeper inner work. And we're covering off from nutrition and posture and connection, really basic health principles, through to some deeper psychology, and ultimately even to some depth psychology. So it's looking like a very juicy program. So if anyone's interested, please follow the link. We're in the pre-launch phase, so we're offering a really good deal just until 9 p.m. tonight, and then the price will increase. So if you're keen to jump on, then please do that. And our primary outlet for that one is via the yoga and psychology community. So if you want to stay up on the mentorship program, then definitely join the community page. That's it from me. And thank you again, Michelle. It's always a delight talking with you. And thank you, listeners, as Michelle said, for giving up your Sunday evening. Enjoy your week, everybody. Back to school. And we'll catch you next time, Michelle.
Thank you so much. Have a good week.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.